Welcome everyone back to the arena with your hosts MD and me, Matt. Today we have a special guest with us, BC. BC Serna BC's a lot of things. Coach, mentor, content creator, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker. Beyond all that, BC's just a good dude. Like, there are not a lot of people. I find myself creating most of the time when it comes to social media rather than consuming at this point in my life, very intentionally. But I will never miss a BC. Whenever I see a BC post reel, I'm like, I'm tuning in. I'm going to be present for this video because I always gain something out of it. And I just really appreciate BC as a human and the presence he brings to the spaces he's in. So BC, man, this is super special. We're really grateful to have you. Why don't we start off with, who is BC Serna?
Oh, wow. Thanks for that introduction, man. Yeah, it's been an honor to be able to use social media to find the others, connect with people that are on similar paths and going through similar parts of their human experience. For me, man, I'm constantly learning who I am and unfolding who I am and trying to figure out how to do this human experience well. But I guess I started this journey just as a normal American kid trying to figure out how to fit into society. I wasn't good in sports. I wasn't good in academics. And so I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And by the grace of God, I dropped out of college at 19 and got a job with a study abroad program and started traveling the world. And my whole entire life changed and flipped upside down. And I realized what passion and purpose was. And that there was so many more doors than just education and sports. And so, yeah, I've been on a mission for the last 18 years since I was 19, trying to figure out how to bring the human experience into the highest ability of service towards humanity to have purpose. And that's looked like a lot of different chapters of my life, from being a filmmaker, humanitarian filmmaker, traveling to nearly 100 countries, telling stories of good and impact, and then working with high school kids and everything in between, I guess. Yeah, man. So I don't know. It's a loaded question because it's been an adventure, and even till this day, 18 years later, I still feel like I'm a student, and I'm still asking God, like, well, what do you want me to do with my life? And I'm still curious on what's left to live. Feel like I'm just getting
And
started
so,
some days.
and so BC, like, I think there's a lot of people that probably look up to you in a lot of ways and feel like you may have all the answers. I mean, when you say you're a student, how are you studying? Like, how are you learning? Like, I know it seems like you spend a lot of time in prayer, meditation, silence, but like, how are you, as someone that, I think of as very wise and very intentional, very purposeful, like, how are you still studying, learning?
I think I'm always just trying to find my blind spots. I'm always just trying to be curious. Like, once I hit a certain degree of knowing something or understanding something or learning something, I'm always curious if there's another side to the coin and there's another, like, dimension to explore. Like, every time I feel like I think I know something, I'm like, wait, is there, like, am I also just like, like that more the more you learn, the more you realize the less you know, or something, that kind of quote. And so I'm always just constantly asking my thoughts these questions, and my God, the human experience, everything, man. I was a youth pastor for a long time with inner city kids. I lived with monks all throughout Asia. I lived with Muslims throughout the Middle East. And I just was always aware that there's something else to discover about this human experience. And
And how oh,
yeah, keep going. No, I love it.
yeah, no, and I was just curious, like, how much of, because it sounds like you went on this, like, seeking journey to find maybe more purpose of what life is beyond what you talked about being education and sports. And it just sounds like, instead of looking to find a thing, it seems like life right now is really just about living in the search. Is that something that you've sort of discovered for yourself, which is like, I'm not looking for anything in particular other than just living my life, constantly seeking to learn?
Well, that's a great question, bro. I think my whole life is not only seeking to learn, but seeking to do. And I don't really, I try not to sit in the echo chambers of what is and what isn't. And just, right now we're in peak culture of these debate videos on Jubilee and all these, internet viral videos of people debating. And I'm like, yo, I don't care about any of these debates. I want to see people doing action. I don't care how much you know. And something I was telling a group of men last week is, I was like, every man wants to tell you how to garden and they think they know how to garden. But if they don't have a garden with fruit, I just don't care about how much they know about gardening. And so I'm only looking for people who have gardens of fruit, and which means purpose and impact, and like they've done something, of value, like they've produced something with what they know. And so I think that's what's always tried to separate me, is I feel like I'm more of a doer than maybe like a philosopher in some sense. And in the doing, I learned the philosophy, I guess, along the way. Um, so yeah, man, I'm always looking on how I can best serve, awaken, heal, and unite humanity. That's the question I'm always asking myself.
And so I guess how do you, because I think, going through your social media, the word purpose comes up a lot. And I think it's something that lots of people that feel like they don't have it want. How do you think about purpose? How do you help people discover their purpose? And how do you think about your own purpose and maybe how it's evolved?
Yeah, purpose has been the cornerstone. It's been my whole life. It's really what keeps the engine going in a world that is full of fast food and, like, the doing of success or money. There's always like these mountaintops we're trying to get to, and there's like this quote, I think it's Tony Robbins, where it's like the ultimate failure is success without fulfillment, like reaching a mountaintop and then just being like, man, I worked my whole life for this and there's no fulfillment in it. And so purpose has always been the antidote to the poison of comparison, to the poison of depression or anxiety or what I don't have. And I've always been like, man, if I have use for my pain, then my pain doesn't have power over me. And so I've always just, the way in my belief, in my kind of structure, is how you find your purpose is find the hardest part of your life and then go help people navigate that more easily. Be the person you wish you had, create the content you wish existed, create the music you wish existed, and the events that you wish existed. And so I've always just looked at, like, man, where are my hardest, loneliest moments have been, and how do I create spaces that help serve that younger version of myself?
And so how do you think about, well, I guess, you mentioned for yourself, thinking about the hardest moments you've ever been in. I guess for you personally, when you think of, you feel like it feels like a man that's lived 100 lives. I mean,
Yeah,
monk
yeah,
and
oh, yeah,
different
days.
humanitarian, travel the world, all sorts of different things. Um, as you reflect back, what was ultimately maybe one of the more difficult periods of your life? What did it teach you about yourself? And ultimately, how did you go from maybe that place of darkness to developing that into a sense of purpose and get out of that place?
Yeah, man. I mean, every moment of our life is a choice point, especially the lowest moments. A family member dying, a car accident, going bankrupt, going through a breakup, losing a job. All of these moments are gifts for our awakening. And so every hardship is a choice point of, am I going to be the villain of my story, or am I going to be the hero of my story? Am I going to, or the victim, like, am I going to use this moment of my dad dying or my car accident or my near death experience or losing my house or being homeless, whatever it is? Am I going to just play the victim, or am I going to go, man, I got to go make sure no one has to ever feel that again? And it's just every choice point that we have. And so every season and chapter of my life, I've just looked back the last 5 years of my life and said, what can I create that would have alleviated that pain that I went through, and created that? And that's kind of always been. And so I've always, like, it sounds weird, but I've always simplified my life. Like, it's been grandiose and theatrical on some level, but it's always because I just simplified it in a weird sense. I didn't shoot out to be hundreds of thousands of followers and millions of views, or the thought leader, or anything really big. I just was always like, how can I serve the one person? And in doing that, somehow spiraled into this grandiose adventure that I've been on. And so I've always had this cool, like, humble approach in some sense of just being like, all right, God, what do you want me to do? And God's like, move back to the US and work with high school kids. And I was like, that doesn't really sound cool, but I went and did it. And then that opened up doors for much cooler things. And so I've always lived my life in a kind of like simple way, but then it became like bigger sometimes, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. And curious to learn more about your journey with religion. And maybe it's maybe more defined as spirituality, but somebody who has lived amongst, I mean, you mentioned monks, Muslims, you're talking about God. how do you religiously identify, if at all, and how has that journey evolved from beginning to today?
Oh man, yeah, dude, this is yeah, I mean that's the hardest thing in the entire world to conceptualize our spiritual experience, our God experience, and being someone who loves to learn and loves to dive deep into history and scriptures and theology, and tries to look at these stories from thousands of years ago and implement them, why they would have value in our life now. What does this mean to my purpose now? And just got caught in these echo chambers of I never really fit in anywhere because I always asked questions in every space I was in. So what I always kind of say is I would go to these Christian churches and I would ask questions or have different things and I get kind of kicked out. And then I would go to spiritual communities and talk about Jesus and the Holy Spirit and I get kicked out. And then I would go to mental health communities and I would talk about God and spirituality and get kicked out. And so I just continually was like, man, where is the home for someone who loves all of it, the trauma, the mental health, the spiritual side, the God side, the Jesus side. And so I started just to create spaces like that. And I launched a program 6 years ago called Pursuing Purpose, where we do these online programs, these retreats. And it was really just that. And so, yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to be so involved in the character of Jesus and guided by this way of, I think his values and his morals and his ethics kind of paved a way of humility, and then being really confused by the experience other Christians are having. The way I always put it is like, imagine you say you're going vegan and then you go to these vegan conferences and everyone's eating cheeseburgers and you're just like, wait, I thought we were like all vegan and everyone's eating chicken nuggets. And you're like, no, we are all vegan. We eat cheeseburgers. And like, that's what it feels like going to Christian churches sometimes, where everyone says they're Christians and following Jesus, and yet they feel sometimes judgmental or closed-minded or heart closed. And so it's this weird world. Yeah, it's tough.
How do you navigate that? Because I'm kind of on that journey right now where, for whatever reason, have felt over the last maybe year or so called to start going to church, explore Christianity. And I think more so because like my foundation is one of love and compassion. I was like, oh, well, that aligns with, Jesus and a lot of the teachings. And so I've kind of been called that way. As I do that and I learn more I start going to church more, I also see people that call themselves Christians that, are closed-minded, or, myself as a gay man that aren't accepting of me. And I'm like, well, my God loves everybody and this is how I was created to be. So why would I not be accepted? And so sometimes it can be confusing. And so I'm curious for your perspective on how you navigate what feels so true to you, maybe, because, sitting in silence and just like when I'm with myself, but then on the outside, externally, it can also be very confusing and complex.
Oh, it's the hardest part of my life. It's my dharma. It's my challenge to I mean, Jesus, they killed him for it, right? So Jesus couldn't figure it out either. And um no one can figure it out. It just comes down to you and you and how you are loving to yourself, how you are loving to others. And we get really caught up in what other people are doing, and we just got to continue to create the spaces we wish existed. We have to simplify the algorithm in our hearts and minds. You guys are creating this podcast, and there's both of you on your own journeys of your own masculinity are going to learn new things, and then maybe have you guys are friends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys are friends, and along both your journeys, you might actually start to change your minds and opinions about things. And then that's going to come up into your friendship, and even in marriage and relationships. Like, we're constantly learning and evolving. And so the goal is to just have that curiosity and that open-heartedness. And then the dogma of like, when someone tries to label you, just being okay with say, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what Jesus meant in that part of the Bible. And I do know that love to me feels very inclusive and accepting. I have had spiritual experiences with breath work and plant medicines and God long enough to where I've seen some crazy stuff with like exorcisms and entities being, prayed out of people, and just intense stuff. But at the same time, like, I'm almost convinced we all go back home after we die. Like, we all came from source, and I have my own experience and belief that like we're all going back home. Like there's a unification to this source of God that we get really caught up in this afterlife of who gets tortured and who doesn't, and the analytics of it. And it's just like, and I made a video recently. That's how we connected on that video, was just like, these afterlife people, man, they care so much about it because they're not really focused on this life because they've given up this life. And so Jesus just didn't talk about it that much. It wasn't that much of his point. And if it was, then we would all just kill ourselves and go to the afterlife, right? It's like, oh, that's the party we're waiting for. Why are we even here? And so there's a purpose why we're here, and it's expansive and it's difficult and it's poetic and it's confusing, and we're human yet spiritual, and no words will ever do justice to the feeling of love. Like music, like I always compare it to music. Like I can never describe my favorite song to you and expect you to cry. Like I would be stupid to try to explain my favorite song to you and I'm like, why aren't you crying right now? Why don't you have goosebumps? That part always gives me goosebumps. I would sound so stupid trying to make a saxophone sound and a piano sound. That is what God is. It's a song that only we can hear. And the way we dance, meaning the way we love people, is the song that we're listening to. And I'm not going to stop dancing to the song so I can explain the piano that I'm listening to that's making me cry. I'm going to continue to love people. And someday someone goes, hey, what song are you listening to? Because it's really powerful. And I'm going to tell my testimony and my story, and they might like it. But yeah, I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, and I think it's ironic that you ask at the end of some of these points, if it makes sense, because I hear you speak here and now presently. I hear a lot of your content. I see the world around me, and I just have to imagine that the average person is probably hard to relate to, and I'm just so curious about your own social network, and like what that looks like on a daily basis when you go out into today's world here in this country. Like, do people look at you like you have three heads? Like, how do you connect with people? And just tell me more about like your social life.
Dude, that's a good question, Mike. That's a fun question. Yeah, man, that's such an interesting question. I've been really fortunate to reach a part of my life where I am only enthralled in people's stories when I'm social or when I'm out or when I'm creating something that I have very little need to talk about myself. And anytime I'm social, anytime I'm doing something, I'm just enthralled in hearing people's hearts and stories and dreams. And everyone's waiting for those questions. Like one of the questions I lead with when I meet someone is like, when's the last time you cried? Like right when I meet someone, I'll be like, yo, just curious. Good to meet you. When's the last time you cried? And it's a freaking question, right? Like, damn, like some people have been like, dude, this morning. And then some people have been like, dude, 5 years. And so it's such a beauty. Everyone is waiting for this. Everyone's waiting for podcasts like you guys. Everyone's waiting for questions like that. And when you know that, yes, it's easy to talk about sports and it's easy to talk about the weather. But everyone's hungry for the deep conversations. Like I used to be insecure. I used to be like, do I tell people I'm a coach? Do I tell people I'm a purpose mentor? Do I tell people I'm a public speaker? And when I'm out at events or anywhere, people go, what do you do? I go, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I honestly, like, I don't even, and that's kind of like the humor of it all. But yeah, it's just creating, I can't get over like creating moments and conversations that you wish existed, asking questions that you wish someone asked you.
And how much do you find yourself bending to different environments sometimes where it's like you're craving that deeper conversation, but you're in an environment where they are talking about the weather or sports, and like, yeah,
Oh my God.
how much does that tear you up? And like, how do you reconcile that where it's, you maybe are like dancing around the line with some people and you're like trying to gauge, can we get into this conversation that really matters, that would actually energize us?
You walk with tons of grace and patience. Obviously you don't want to judge. Sometimes I'm in situations where, there's 6 guys at the gym and they're all talking about the sports games and stuff, which is cool. I'm trying my best to like dissolve the illusion of judgment. So I'm not trying to force it, but yeah, we could be talking for 30, 40 minutes and there was just no window for me to say anything deep. And that's fine. And I'm okay with like kind of surrendering those moments. The crazy part is I can go play basketball every morning with a group of guys for 4 or 5 months and never talk about anything deep. And then 5 months goes by and one of the guys hears about what I do. And through one of the other guys, someone's like, oh man, I'm going through this thing and I want to start a podcast and do this. And someone's like, oh, you have to talk to BC. And it's like, why would BC know anything? And it's like, oh, that's what he does. And so then 5 months of relationship building, then this guy goes, BC, I would love you to mentor me and help me with my podcast and my brand and my content. And so, it's just, it's kind of dying to the forcingness of it. And you're talking to someone who like, dude, my family does not care. I mean, my family's great, but like I went to Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners for 10 years in my 20s and a little bit into my 30s. And no one ever asked me about what I'm doing. Like no one, I just went to freaking Uganda and built an orphanage and I'm at a dinner with all my family members. And my family, I think they kind of knew what I did, but it was almost like awkward to ask me because actually, I don't know. It was just, but it sucked for years. I cared really much. I was like, why aren't they asking me about my life? And then I was like, oh, probably because I don't know, man. So it's tough, but that's why you create the content and you host the events. Have you guys hosted an event yet together?
Haven't hosted an event. I'm a speaker, so I'm part of the event, if you will. But we haven't hosted like a retreat or anything. Which, by the way, we'll talk off podcast. But I'm looking to do a men's group, and I feel like you'd be the perfect person for it. But we'll have that conversation later.
Yeah.
But
So
anyways,
you guys hosting a live podcast, doing a podcast live, and you guys hosting your own event, and you start to just you create what you like. You basically just go, man, this is tough to like go into these circles and try to talk about things. So let's just create our own event. Like what you're doing with the podcast is it. So now host Men in the Arena podcast event and see who comes. And then that's how you switch culture and you switch gears. And then you don't even know someone that you play basketball with or work out with or that follows you online shows up, someone you had no idea was even in your radar. And they're like, dude, thank you so much for hosting this event. I've been looking for men in Chicago that are open-minded, that are heart-centered, that are entrepreneurs, that are trying new things, who are making content. And so that's the secret to life is you just, yeah.
I think it's certainly, I've seen it true in my life. It's not even like the reason you're doing what you're doing, but it's a byproduct of living heartfelt authentically, is you have people that you would think would never be ones to reach out that will randomly reach out after 5 months of playing basketball and be like, hey, wow, I didn't know you were a mental health speaker. And like, because you're a mental health speaker, because you're a purpose mentor, whatever it might be, they naturally just feel more comfortable to share more freely and openly than I think they otherwise would have. I guess I'd be remiss if we didn't spend a little bit of time on talking about masculinity with you. I guess what is, because I think it's in your Instagram title bio, like what is divine masculinity?
Yeah. So how old are you guys?
How old do you think we are?
Man, I'm guessing 31.
I'm 30. Yeah. I think we're both 30.
Yeah, 30.
Yeah.
30. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So dude, wow. Welcome to the game. 30 is, when's your guys' birthdays?
July and May.
May
July,
21st.
okay.
I appreciate the extra year of knowledge that we're giving off here. The 31,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys, I tell everyone this for the last 18 years, the starting point is 30. Like the starting line is 30 and everything before 30s is a pre-chorus. And you try many hats, you put on all these badges, you try to make friends with everyone, and then you turn 30 and you wake up and you go, I'm exhausted and I don't need certain people as friends and I don't need certain badges. I don't need to prove myself as much. And you slowly start to peel those layers off. And then, 30 to 33 feels like a million lifetimes, like, your crucifixion year of Jesus, that Jesus 33 year. But yeah, masculinity is this multi-layered experience where we are all different divine warriors and kings and servants, and we have different attributes about ourselves. So I try not to like put masculinity into one thing of like you're muscular and you're rich and you're this. Like my greatest masculinity trait is I'm able to ask my men for prayers and help. Like I can call a brother of mine and go, hey, can you pray for me today? Like I'm really struggling as a dad, as a husband, as a leader. And that is the strongest man in the entire world, is the one who can ask for help. That's the heaviest weight that a man will ever lift. The ability to open up your voice and say, I'm struggling, I need support. And so divine masculinity is this embodiment of the fire and the water, this embodiment of the emotion and the strength, and this idea of becoming a warrior in the garden, where you are aware of your power, you are aware of your strength and even your shadows, but yet you tend to a garden in the essence that we love, like us men, like we love being cuddled, we love sex, we love, we love romance, and we try sometimes to not pretend that we're soft too, and we put up these guards, but allowing men to feel okay to be it all and to grieve their dad dying, to be angry that their wife left them, to be emotionally connected to their truth. The greatest thing a woman wants from a man is honesty. And that's it. Honesty is the only way to survive this life. And if we cannot be honest because we're afraid to hurt someone's feelings, we're afraid to trigger someone, then we are just liars. We're lying to ourselves, we're lying to our lovers, we're lying to God. And so we just need to learn how to be honest. And it takes a lot of vulnerability and emotion to be honest. Even if we don't even understand, like, I love this person I want to be with, but I can't, there's some sort of disconnect and I don't know what the disconnect is, but this is how I feel. Instead of just lying to them and saying like, no, I love you and I want to be with you, but just being honest, like, I love you and I do want to be with you, but I don't know why I can't right now. And that's going to hurt their feelings maybe or confuse them, but it's your honest truth.
And so I guess, how do you help men embody some of those maybe traits that we're told are, unacceptable, make us unworthy? Like, how do you help men fully embody all of who they are and really help them feel all of their feelings?
Well, it's a dance. So, we are a trinity of a human. So we are emotional beings. We have nervous systems. We have traumas. We have this beautiful ecosystem in our body. We have conscious cerebral beings. We're smart. We're brilliant. We can, put people on the moon and whatever. And then we're spiritual. And so it's this divine dance that we have to go on of like, we can't think our way out of pain. Like the amount of men who go through divorce and breakup that I coach and work with, and they're just like, I need to read the book. I need to figure out what I did wrong. I need to figure out how to heal. And it's just not something you figure out. It's something you punch a pillow, you cry, you scream, you go on a 20-mile run, you move this energy. And there is no such thing as like, everyone wants a Band-Aid. Everyone wants like, maybe I go do ayahuasca. Maybe I find Jesus. Maybe I do something. And it's like, no, you cannot bypass the human experience. I'm sorry. Like, there is not amount of Jesus or plant medicines that's going to allow you to somehow circumnavigate this beautiful experience of being a human. And you can't think your way out of your dad dying. You can't just be like, okay, my dad died, pick up my bootstraps and just fucking keep carrying on. Like, that just doesn't, you could try. I just don't know how long that'll last, the sustainability of, that kind of torture.
What are the byproducts of that? Like, what does that lead to? Like bitterness, things.
It's just trapped emotion. It's just trapped energy. And so it could lead to vices and addictions and just this lethargic energy within your body that you chase these highs or this coffee or this women or whatever it is. And so it's just not alchemized. And so you have to learn how to alchemize the human experience with the spiritual experience, with the cognitive experience. And those are all at war at all times. Your brain is at war with your emotions are at war with your soul. And so you got to understand that there is a battle happening at all times within the ecosystem of a human that we are just confusing. It doesn't, yeah.
I've studied functional health, and I subscribe to the idea that your body knows and will heal itself. And I certainly believe in following intuition. At the level and at scale that we feel that men are not getting this right, and they're continually searching, reading the book, looking for the answers, what is influencing the straying away from their intuition, from the voice from within that would actually guide them into a more proper healing? What do you feel are the pull factors pulling them away from that intuition in today's world?
Well, we live in a hyper masculine world. You can call it the patriarchy. I'm not sure. I don't really like that word too much, but I call it the wounded masculine. But we live in a world of robotic numbers and calculations. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, more money, more followers, more emails. It's just not sustainable. And so learning how a man can go lay down in nature and just surrender to God, to not doing anything, but yet still feeling validated and loved. And a man knows how to garden like with real plants and gardens, and knows how to sit with his woman and just listen to her storm that she's navigating, and to be the biggest thing I tell men that they need to be for their women is an anchor. And a woman, dude, those beautiful, they're the greatest part about this human experience, on some level, in the sexualness of like this I don't know, just the cohesiveness of it. So like she comes with her emotions and crashes against the ship, and we got to be able to be anchored. And yeah, sorry, what was the question? It was like, how do we?
No, I love it.
Went off
I
on a
was,
tangent.
and I think you had already answered it really, because describing the world around us that pulls men away from divine masculinity and more into what you would define as more a wounded masculinity. And I think it's a world that runs on numbers, that, has calendars, that has metrics that we're constantly trying to measure up against. And I think it really is a reflection of what you described earlier, which is men like tangible answers. We like to be able to know, what is the metric I need to accomplish to define success, to find my worth, to feel maybe purposeful in this world. And when you look at the world around you, you can attest that it's so much by the design of that wounded masculine. And so, like, how, is that what is it? Am I understanding your answer?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, brother. Is you go to any zoo in America and all the animals are depressed and on antidepressants, and it's just we're out of the natural habitat. And nature, God, and music and play and dance, these feminine attributes of just the nature, dance, music, God, man, just learning how to be okay with not having to be defined by the metrics and the numbers, and who am I when all of the cameras are off. And a lot of men struggle with this. So basically, the person you're dating or marrying, they're marrying and dating the character you're portraying to the world. And the character you are portraying was created from your ego out of a place of fear. And so naturally, and we all do this, there's no shame in our ego. Our ego is very healthy. Our ego said, holy shit, you were bullied for this. You weren't listened to. You weren't loved. And so our ego is just trying to figure out what the fuck I have to do to get love. Yet we cannot receive genuine love if we aren't genuinely honest and if we aren't genuinely in ourselves. And so we're playing this egoic character, and then we keep dating people that are clashing against the character we're building because they just want to know who we truly are. And you marry the person, or you unite with the divine union that who's going to sit with you as you detach from this character, as you fucking like die. Like it's literally a crucifixion. It's literally a death of, I spent my whole life creating this avatar so that I could feel validated and fulfilled and loved, and yet it got me none of those things sustainably. And so then you bring in a divine union, a person you're dating or courting or whatever you want to call it, and they're just like, hey, I think there's something deeper in this little boy that you're trying to like protect. And so yeah, it's just yeah.
And so if there's men watching this that are like, I see a handful of friends, family members, colleagues, whoever it might be, that embody a lot of these hyper masculine, wounded masculine traits in unhealthy ways, whatever it might be. Like, how can I help them? Like, what would you say to that? Like, I want to help them, but they're not listening. They're not receptive.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, story of my life too. It's you just continue to do the work and make everything about yourself as much as possible. So even if they trigger you, even if they annoy you, I mean, even if they trigger you, just being like, oh man, when you said that to me, like it made me kind of feel like it kind of threw off my energy. It kind of like made me spiral in this. It made me think or feel something way. And if you can always make it about yourself, then you always take accountability for like their trigger, but hopefully it invites them either to like look at what they're saying or doing, or looking at themselves, but you always make it about yourself. So you don't come back from a retreat or church. Like so many people come back from church or a retreat and they go, oh my God, you got to do this. You got to change this. you have to come back from church or a retreat and go, damn, I fucking learned something about myself today. I realized I never forgave my dad. I realized I have this addiction to sex or addiction to money or addiction to, you just always make your healing about yourself. And in doing so, that person might either plant a seed of their own healing or ask you questions. But dude, the hardest part of my sister, like, I love my sister to death, but my sister has been fired from 40 plus jobs and like has totaled 7 cars and is on every antidepressant drug medicine you can think of. And I always was like, God, why do I have the hardest person in the entire world as my sister? And God was like, because you came here to learn unconditional love. And you're full of shit if you think you can go love a bunch of people, but not your blood. And this girl who doesn't want your love, who doesn't care for what you know, who doesn't care you have like an audience or knows about trauma. And it's been the hardest dharma of my whole life, but it's been the greatest invitation, because what I realized was I always thought that my sister had to change for me to love her. But what reality is, I had to change the way I saw her so that I can love her, and then my love changes her. And so what happens is we have a lens that's distorted on our mom, our dad, our siblings, our lovers, our friends, and we are seeing them through a lens of like what we think that they need to change about themselves. And what we need to do is wipe the lens clean and just change the way we see them. And when we change the way we see them and we just love them for this little kid that they're trying to figure out their own life, and they're just traumatized as well, and the human experience is hard, then that invites us into just loving them where they're at. And then that love can hopefully transform them on a marathon, not a sprint, you know?
I think that, I mean, it's so well said. I think, about my friends, family members, and, what helped me recently, because I'm like, why do I feel this like resentment towards some of the people I love? I'm like, that, like, logically, I'm like, I forgive them, but I'm like, I don't think I have. And I think what helped me is I pictured them, I visualized like the childlike version of them. And just by like envision that at one point in their lives, they were like this child that was struggling to figure life out in the same way I was, that didn't get their needs met in some way. It like allowed me to develop a sense of compassion and see them in a different way. Doesn't mean I've like figured it all out. And I'm constantly like battling between the emotions and how I feel I should react and trying to live a godly life and all those things. But I found that super helpful, like, because I do it for myself. Like this morning, I just hugged myself, when I'm sitting in silence. And it was almost like I felt like I was hugging the child version of me that felt like so unseen and didn't belong. And I'm like, this is so warm and helpful. And all I'm doing is giving myself a hug. Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and when you have kids, it even amplifies that, and or if you have nephews or nieces or even friends that have kids, you start to just go, man, this human experience is hard and the emotions are hard, and we just need to hug at the end of the day, and we just need to like come together and pray, man, and just go, hey, we can't figure this out, but we can pray in the sense of like just bring in the spiritual side of the not knowing, and then leaning into the gratitude of what we do know and what we do feel, and then just call a spade and just go, this shit's hard. And there is no end. There is no end arrival. There is no, I've read every book in the world. I know every song. I know it all. And I've reached happiness. This doesn't exist. It is a dance. I'm 37 years old. I've been doing this work for 18 years. I've traveled to half the world. And I still have insecurities. That little boy inside me that goes, dude, that video is so dumb. You're such an imposter syndrome. And like, I have 500,000 followers, and yet I still look at my videos with cringe. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm such like and then I'll show my wife and she'll be like, no, that's actually really good. You should post that. I'm like, really? And I had the video on my phone for like 3 weeks. And she's like, no, you should post it. And I'll post it. And of course it'll do good. But like, there is no, it's hard. It's just, you learn to befriend that voice. You learn how to listen to that voice and then just do anyway,
For where you're at, BC, who have been some of the greatest inspirations in your life that you've looked up to, maybe past and current?
That's a good question. There's been a lot of people throughout my life that have somewhat mentored me or inspired me. Different authors, different filmmakers. I don't know if you guys, Richard Rohr is one of my favorite authors. He's like a Catholic priest, but he's like all about this universal Christ, and he's been a priest for like 50 years, but he writes he's written like over 40 books, and he's triggers a lot of Christians because he talks about this universalness of Christ and what it means to be Christ, which means anointed, which means we all have that Christ within us, that anointedness within us. And so he's an amazing guide for me. Yeah, I guess there's different authors, I guess, and mentors. I had a mentor who was a New York best time selling author. He doesn't really have social media, but he used to coach CEOs on how to love their employees better. Like Fortune 500, the biggest CEOs in the world, he would sit with them and go, "Do you know the person who cleans your trash every day? Like, do you know their name?" He's like, "No." He's like, "I want you to know their name, and then I want you to know their family members' names." And he would like teach these CEO of AutoZone, CEO of CVS, like how to love the employees better, and that changes the whole culture of the company.
And
I
what
gotta
about
imagine.
film?
Go ahead.
Or yeah, go ahead, Matt.
No, I was going to say I got to imagine a lot of those Fortune 500 CEOs got to where they are from a lot of those, status, power, for maybe some of the unhealthy motives, drivers to get to where they are. So I can imagine how challenging that work must be for them to have someone come in and say, "Hey, no, you're going to lead from your heart." But go ahead,
Oh
MD.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And that's the awakening we're going through. I think as more and more successful men are going through these divorces, and it's just heartbreaking on the kids, on the men. These men work their whole life for this wealth. They work their whole life for this woman. They work their whole life for this house and this family. And then they miss the mark and they just kept trying to get more money. Q1, Q2, Q3, 4. And then the wife is like, "I'm gone." And then they're just like, "Wait, whoa. Like, I was trying to get this money for us." And the wife's like, "Yeah, but the money's great and that's awesome, but like, yo, I wanted you, like." And so the paradigm that is unfolding within the wounded masculine men that have led this world for so long is, and it might sound controversial, but we're giving the power back to the women, and the women are true spiritual intuitive guides that I think awaken the best parts of us, of the polarity. And right now, if there's fire, the masculine element is fire and the woman element is water. 80% of the world is on fire. And I think we're trying to incorporate this water into like conscious capitalism, collective consciousness of like, this company cares about the bottom line because the stockholders, but now they're going to have to start caring hopefully about the environment and the customers and the people, So yeah.
MD, what were you to say about filmmakers?
Yeah, I was debating if I should even go back to that, but I was curious because we had a guest, I think Naftali, who most of their perspective, their learnings comes from film, and I most recently started rewatching a show, Breaking Bad, that when I first watched it, I didn't have anywhere near the today's worldly view that I have today, and like the understanding and the emotional intelligence that I have today for it. And when you watch a show and you see the world differently, you understand like the moral dilemmas of certain characters, the development, the projections. Curious like how much you have leaned into film as like more a work of art that can also educate and pose some of these dilemmas. Like, are there any films that you've come across that you would say are like, if
Oh,
you
for
really
sure.
pay attention, you'd learn a whole lot?
Yeah, well, I want to make a documentary, so that's one of my dreams, and I'm about to launch a tour. I don't know if you guys saw this thing called The Traveling Good that I'm doing.
Yeah, with the RV.
Yeah, so I did it like almost 10 years ago, and I want to do it again, but I want to bring like a film crew and do a documentary around the whole U.S. and talk about unity and community and consciousness and all that. But yeah, there's a documentary called I Am by Tom Shadyac that changed my life a long time ago, and so that's how I started my ministry or my movement. Is I literally found a documentary that I loved, and then I just was like, yo, I'm gonna watch this film, whoever wants to come to my house and watch it. So then 2 people came. Next week I did a different documentary, 10 people came. Next week I did a different documentary, 20 people came, and then 50. And then next thing you know what, I rent out a movie theater in Denver, and I like and so like I started by like, everyone's like, I don't know how to host an event, I don't know what my event would be about. I'm like, yo, my first events were just documentaries. We would watch it and then talk about it afterwards. And so I'm always just trying to push people to host events, create what you wish existed over and over. And that documentary changed my life, and I want to make a documentary too. But yeah, tons of films. I mean, stories. Have you guys heard of The Hero's Journey?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So Joseph Campbell was this philosopher, and he went around the world. He was the first person to go around the world and study stories from Japan to Brazil to Uganda to Canada. And this was before people could travel the world really, like a lot. And he was like, man, every culture, every society has this story called the hero's journey. And it's our story. And it's this every movie that we love, Batman, at the beginning of Batman, his parents die. At the beginning of Star Wars, his parents die. Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, gets taken away in a tornado, away from home. And so all of us go on this thing called the hero's journey. And Joseph Campbell is this beautiful philosopher and has all of these analogies throughout. Every movie that we love is based on the hero's journey. And the reason we love it is because we are supposed to live our hero's journey. We are in the movie, we are the characters. And so every movie is symbolic, and it's trying to push us towards the edge, to quit that job, to ask that person out, to start that company. Like every movie is this Cinderella theatrical expectation of like our life. And I always tell people, like, you're either the star of your movie or you're the background character in someone else's movie. So I know it is hard being a social media content creator. It is uncomfortable because you're like, oh God, I don't want to be egotistical. I don't want to be cocky. I don't want to seem like I know it all. But it's like, yo, you got to play the character. You got to have fun with this life.
I love that. I love it. I love, and I also love a reel that whenever I see a BC reel that starts with like, I know this is gonna offend some people, or I'm like, all right, I'm like, buckle up. But there was one you said recently, and I just would love to hear your perspective on it, maybe again, which is, you can't call yourself awake if you're asleep to the suffering of others. Can you just expand on that?
Yeah. Oh man, that one was controversial. That one was a tough one to release. I worked on that one. That took like months. I'm always trying to find the fine line of acknowledging I can only change myself and I need to focus on what I can control and change, and not shaming people for their own spiritual journey and their own awakening and their own healing journey. And yet I also want to say things that invite the trigger that might be the trigger that they need. Dude, it's a fine balance, man. It is hard not wanting to judge or shame people, yet wanting to challenge them with like a tough love invitation and being like, yo, I guess the frustration is real art and real influence is people who are part of the actual world and conversation, that things are really happening in the world. And a lot of people are spiritually bypassing, or what's the other word? Spiritually bypassing, or what's like there's another word to it. The happiness. It's like, oh, I forgot what the word is. Anyway, so I think a lot of people are just being like, yo, I'm gonna continue to create content or do things without acknowledging that there's really pain happening in the world right now. And yeah, I think there's just I don't know. It's hard. I realize I'm not going to change someone's mind in the comment section of a Facebook or Instagram post, but hopefully I can plant a seed that challenges them to go, damn, like I have been silent on certain issues. I have been neglecting certain conversations. I don't know, man. It's hard.
And is that the goal? Like, when your primary goal of making content, what is the goal? Is it to change one person's perspective? Is it to challenge others? Like, what is your goal when thinking about creating a new reel or post to create?
Oh yeah, man. I'm always praying on like what's on the surface, anybody who asks me what piece of content they should make, I'm always like, what's on the surface? Like what's on the docket? Like, so are you going through, like, even if someone's like, I'm scared to post on social media, I'm like, make a video about that. Like, create that. So for me, I'm always just trying to, I guess, dude, my content's all over the place, man. My content does not make sense. It's like relationships and dating, trauma and healing, God and spirituality, masculinity. So it's always what I'm going through, I guess. The best way to explain it is I'm just trying to invite people into what I'm going through, and maybe turn that into like a lesson or a piece of wisdom or knowledge. But the best content, the most authentic content, is just honestly what you're going through, what you're currently navigating. Even you on the start, this podcast, you're like, man, I'm trying to figure out my spirituality. I started going to church. Like, making a piece of content around that is super vulnerable, but it's true. And vulnerability and authenticity are going to magnetize a real audience, a real following, a real community of people who recognize who you are. And so I'm not always trying to be like, I know what I know. I know what I believe. This is it. I'm always just being like, yo, this might make sense. This might trigger some people. I'm just going to say it. And it's not perfect. It's kind of messy. There's sometimes I watch videos and I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said that part, or may I could have done that better and said this differently. Like every video I make, I could easily pick it apart and then never make it because it's never perfect. But I'm learning to just release it and release it and release it and then reiterate it. If 3 months down the road I change my mind, make a video about that, you know?
So, BC, to wrap this up, and you've been wonderful, but what in life are you most proud of?
Oh man, that's a good question. Do you guys always end with that question?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dope.
Lately, yeah.
That's sick, man. Oh man, what am I most proud of in my life? Oh my God. It's the purpose. It's the people's lives I've impacted. I get messages every single day from people that have been through my retreats or my programs, and they're just like, yo, I'm living in Italy right now. I'm living my dream. Or I started my photography company, and it's purpose. And I love my kids and I love my wife, but man, it is truly the garden of, especially when someone I've impacted is now a coach or a mentor or impacting other people. It's that legacy that lives on. I'm really proud that I trusted my intuition when I was young and I was 22 years old. Everyone's talking about parties and college and girls and sports, and I'm just like trying to change the world in the Philippines. And I was like, dude, what am I doing? And so I'm proud that I stayed committed to God and I was moldable clay. Like I was always willing to learn and willing to die to the ego of like, you're 30 years old and you don't own a house yet. You're not married. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm 33 years old, still not married, still don't own a house. And I'm like, yeah, this life isn't about me, I guess, you know? And so I was really proud that I stayed committed to that
Yeah,
truth.
I love what you said. I'm proud that I trusted my intuition when I was young. You said when you were young. I think more broadly, if anyone, like, that is something to be extremely proud of. You trust your intuition and follow it. That is the road less traveled. So anyways, BC Serna, everyone. BC, thank you so much.
Dude, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.